Have you ever spent hours cramming for an exam, only to forget everything the next day? Or maybe you've watched a dozen tutorials on a topic, but still feel like you can't actually do the thing you were trying to learn. This feeling is super common, and it often points to a big difference in how we approach learning. It's the difference between collecting random puzzle pieces and actually putting the puzzle together. We're talking about fragmented versus integrated learning. Understanding this distinction is one of the most powerful things you can do to improve how you study, work, and grow. It's the key to making knowledge stick and turning information into real usable skills. So, what exactly is fragmented learning? Imagine you're trying to learn about digital marketing. You read an article about SEO today, watch a YouTube short about social media ads tomorrow, and listen to a podcast snippet about email campaigns next week. Each piece of information is a separate, isolated dot. You're collecting facts without connecting them. This often happens when we're passively consuming content without a clear goal. The warning signs are easy to spot. You might feel overwhelmed by information, struggle to explain a topic in your own words, or find it impossible to apply what you've learned to a new problem. It's like having a pile of bricks but no blueprint to build a house. On the other side, we have integrated learning. This is where the magic happens. Integrated learning is all about building connections. Instead of just collecting dots, you're actively drawing lines between them to create a bigger picture. Using our digital marketing example, an integrated learner might start with a core question. How do businesses attract customers online? Then, they would learn about SEO, social media, and email campaigns not as separate subjects, but as different tools that all work together to answer that one big question. They see how a blog post, which is SEO, can be promoted on Instagram, which is social media, to capture emails for a newsletter, which is the email campaign. It's about building a mental framework, or a mind map, where every new piece of information has a place to go. This approach transforms learning from a chore into a creative process. When you learn in an integrated way, you're not just memorizing, you're understanding. You're building a rich, interconnected web of knowledge in your mind. This makes information much easier to remember because each concept is hooked to many others. If you forget one detail, another related idea can help you retrieve it. More importantly, it allows for true mastery. You can see the entire system, which means you can solve novel problems, think critically, and adapt your knowledge to different situations. This is the kind of deep learning that truly moves the needle in your career and personal projects.
Perfect.
Fragmented learning might feel productive in the moment. After all, you're consuming a lot of information, but it's a huge barrier to long-term memory and true understanding. Our brains aren't designed to hold on to isolated, context-free bits of data for long. Think of it like trying to remember a random string of numbers versus remembering a phone number belonging to a friend. The number linked to a person, a face, and shared experiences is much easier to recall. Fragmented facts are like those random numbers. They lack the meaningful connections that help anchor them in our memory. This is why rote memorization often fails us outside of the exam hall. The biggest problem with this style of learning is that it prevents mastery. You can know 100 different facts about a subject, but still have no idea how the system works as a whole. For instance, a medical student could memorize the names of every bone in the hand, but not understand how the muscular and nervous systems work together to allow for movement. Without that deeper, integrated understanding, they can't diagnose a problem or figure out a treatment plan. The knowledge is brittle. It shatters as soon as you try to use it in a real-world scenario. It's the difference between knowing the ingredients of a cake and knowing how to actually bake one. This leads to a frustrating cycle. Because the information doesn't stick, you have to constantly relearn the same things over and over. This is incredibly inefficient and can kill your motivation. You might start to believe you're bad at learning or that a subject is too difficult when the real issue is your method. The feeling of being stuck in a loop of learning and forgetting is a classic sign that your approach is too fragmented. You're putting in the hours, but because the knowledge isn't being woven into a coherent mental model, it simply evaporates. This is why so many people give up on learning new skills. To figure out if you're stuck in this trap, here's a quick self-check. Ask yourself these questions after a study session. First, can I explain this concept to a 10-year-old using a simple analogy? If not, your understanding might be too fragmented. Second, how does this new information connect to what I already know about this topic? If you can't draw any connections, it's an isolated fact. Third, how could I use this information to solve a problem? If you're stumped, the knowledge is likely just theoretical. Answering these questions honestly can reveal whether you're just collecting facts or truly building understanding. Now let's flip the script and talk about why integrated learning is so effective. The core idea is that you're not just passively receiving information, you're actively constructing a mental model. This is like building a scaffold for your knowledge. When you first start learning a topic, you build the main structure. Then, every new piece of information you learn has a specific place to attach to on that scaffold. This makes learning feel organized and intentional, rather than chaotic and overwhelming. It's a proactive approach where you are the architect of your own understanding, not just a collector of random bits and pieces. This method works in harmony with how our brains are naturally wired. Our brains think in networks of associated neurons. When we learn something new that connects to existing knowledge, we strengthen these neural pathways. This is why storytelling is such a powerful tool for memory. A story provides context, emotion, and a logical sequence, all things that help link ideas together. Integrated learning does the same thing. By constantly asking how and why, you create a narrative for your knowledge. This web of connections makes retrieval almost effortless because pulling on one thread brings the whole network with it. Let's take a practical example. Imagine you want to learn about personal finance. A fragmented approach would be to read random articles on stocks, budgeting, and taxes. An integrated approach would be to start with a core question. How can I build wealth over the long term? This question becomes the center of your mental model. Now, when you learn about low-cost index funds, you can immediately connect it to your core goal. When you learn about creating a budget, you see it as the tool that frees up capital for investing. Each new concept reinforces the others, creating a robust and flexible understanding of the entire system. This flexibility is the ultimate superpower of integrated learning. When you understand the underlying principles and how different components interact, you can adapt to new situations. If a new type of investment product appears, you don't have to start from scratch. You can analyze it using your existing framework, figuring out how it fits into your overall strategy. This is the path to true expertise. Experts aren't people who have memorized the most facts. They are people who have the most organized and interconnected mental models. They can see the forest, not just the individual trees. Making the switch from fragmented to integrated learning doesn't require you to be a genius. It just requires a change in strategy. The first and most important step is to always start with a core question. Before you dive into any topic, ask yourself, what is the one big problem I'm trying to solve here? Or what is the main thing I want to be able to do with this information? This question becomes your anchor. It gives your learning a purpose and a direction. Every video you watch or chapter you read should be in service of answering that question, which helps you filter out irrelevant noise and focus on what truly matters. Next, actively look for connections from multiple perspectives. Don't just learn a concept from one source. When you learn about a historical event, for example, read about it from the viewpoint of different groups involved. If you're learning a coding concept, try to understand how it applies in web development versus data science. By looking at an idea from different angles, you build a more three-dimensional understanding. This practice forces you to see the relationships between different parts of a subject, strengthening your mental web and preventing the knowledge from becoming rigid and one-dimensional. Visual tools are your best friend in this process. One of the best ways to integrate knowledge is to get it out of your head and onto a piece of paper or a screen. Create a mind map, draw a flowchart, make a simple sketch. The act of visually organizing information forces you to identify the main ideas, the supporting details, and the connections between them. You can't draw a map without understanding how the locations relate to each other. This simple habit of visualizing what you're learning is a powerful way to move from a passive consumer to an active builder of knowledge. Finally, prioritize reflection and application. Set aside time to think about what you've learned. Ask yourself, what are the key takeaways here? How does this change my perspective? How can I use this tomorrow? Even better, find a small, low-stakes project where you can immediately apply your new knowledge. If you're learning video editing, try making a 1-minute video for your family. This act of doing solidifies understanding in a way that passive learning never can. In the end, deep, organized learning is far more valuable than the superficial collection of facts. It's about building a framework that serves you for a lifetime, not just for the next test.